Shalom Aleichem, everybody. Ariel Bar Tzadok here from the KosherTorah School, found online at www.KosherTorah.com. We are presently in a series of lessons which I've entitled the Kabbalah 101, Beyond the Basics, if you will. And we've talked about a number of different topics in this, topics that your usual other rabbis will not talk about. And tonight, I'm going to address one of these topics which the times have dictated or required this of me. This was not originally a topic that I was planning to put in this series, but as I said, Devar be'ito, everything in its time. And that, tonight's topic, is the topic of the Messiahs, in plural, in Kabbalah. And of course, we cannot discuss Messiahs, the concept of the Messiah, the messianic stuff in Kabbalah without understanding it in greater Judaism. So that is going to be our topic for tonight, and very possible might spill over in the next week as well. We're just going to wait and see. I want to share with you what has motivated me at this time to feel compelled to have to introduce this topic. And that is the topic of a very divisive, harmful group of individuals who are these supposed Jewish or Messianic or Hebrew Christian missionaries. Now, just let me state here for the record, I don't care what you believe. If you want to believe Yeshua is your Messiah, God bless you. Believe whatever you want. If you're Jewish and that's what you want to believe, go for it. All right? I don't care. I don't care what you believe. I don't care how you think or feel. I only care about your behavior and your actions. Now, in recent decades, we have had the absolute blessing, maybe for the first time in history, where faithful God-believing Jews and faithful God-believing Christians are building bridges, recognizing very well the differences in our faiths, respecting that, and learning that we have a lot more in common than we don't. And these so-called Judaizers, that's what the Christians call them, are a big problem. And I know many of you, my audience, fall into this category. Now, like I said, I don't care what you believe. And no, I'm not going to close the doors of our school to you if you really want to be exposed to KosherTorah. But I'm going to tell you the problems that you cause. I want you to know it. And I want you to see for yourselves why I and other rabbis have to take such strong positions against you. What's going on here? All right. Let me tell you what's going on. First of all, you all know the definition of Christianity. You can go and look at what's called the apostolic creeds, the Nicene creeds. These are the foundations of Christian faith. You want to believe that Yeshua was born of a virgin because Matthew said so? I could care less. You want to believe that Yeshua died and was resurrected? I could care less. All right? Why then is this a problem? Do you really think that because you're going to put on Jewish garb and enter into the Torah-observant community, that you're going to convert Orthodox Jews? You know that's not going to happen for reasons we'll discuss tonight. All right? We started our organization, the Yeshivat B'nai Nevi'im, our original name, back in 1992, as an anti-cult, anti-missionary outreach program. I've been dueling with missionaries for over 30 years, and I know the truth. No one really is going to listen to anything they don't want to listen to. I get it. I'm not here to show that. I'm not here to convince or change anybody. But the one thing I'm here to challenge you, especially you Jewish, supposed so-called Jewish missionaries out there, is your dishonesty and the effect and harm you are causing other members of the Jewish community. Now, let me tell you this. I remember years ago, one of the original missionaries, Zola Levitt. How many of you remember Zola Levitt from way back when? I used to monitor his stuff just to see what he was up to. And I remember watching one of his television programs, in which, as a Jewish Christian, he was complaining that members of his evangelical community did not accept him because of his Judaic expressions. In other words, he was facing anti-Semitism because of his Judaism. And they condemned him as being what's called a Judaizer, which is an old term, and there's something behind that. Now, I remember I wanted to call him and speak to him and ask him what was going on. He refused to take my call. He says he wouldn't even speak to an Orthodox rabbi. That's what he said. Pretty much told me to go F off. And you know what that means, right? We don't use that language even though he did. Now, let's move up. Recently, we had a story, it was all over the Jewish news. I think it was a father and son team who had infiltrated the Jewish communities masquerading as rabbis. This is a devastating problem. And it's not the first time. But many of you who will remember years and years ago when I taught an Orthodox rabbi reads the Christian Bible, where I covered the Gospel of Matthew from a Torah point of view, I shared some of my own experiences with these devastating people way back when in the, 80s and 90s. Now, why are they so bad? And the answer is this: not because of what you believe. You want to believe Yeshua Messiah, like I said. No one in the Torah community cares. You want to come and become Jewish and observe Torah and mitzvot and convert according to halakha? Doors are open to you. What's the problem? The problem is when you lie and you masquerade as Jewish when you're not. Or if you were born Jewish and you're accepting Christianity, you are no longer a Jew. You can say whatever you want, that's the truth. And then you come into the Jewish community masquerading as a kosher Jew. You get involved with the Jewish community to the point where you can be invited into performance of Jewish rituals, included in a minyan, which you are not qualified to do. And if you, as one of these secret missionaries, join a minyan, and they count you in the minyan, then you are in violation, causing everybody to break the halakha because of you. Now, they are what we call shogeg. They don't know what's going on, but you do. You're the guilty party. It gets worse. Let's say you're invited to become a witness at a ketubah ceremony, or you get married in the Jewish community without knowing. You cause all kinds of halachic chaos when, because of your involvements, you destroy marriages, you invalidate the marriages, you can destroy families. You try to raise yourself as being Jewish, whereas at the same time you raise your children to be Jewish, only that later in the years when they grow up and it comes time for them to get involved with matchmaking and the like, and you don't have the pedigree to prove that you're Jewish and your children are disqualified for being Jewish, they are not allowed to marry in the Jewish community. And that hurts them to no end because you lied to them all your lives. Shame on you. You're doing this to your own children. You are causing devastating harm in the Jewish communities, all because you're a bunch of liars. If you're honest and you walk into the Jewish community and say, "Hi, I'm a Christian. I believe in Yeshua." I don't care, call yourself first century Christian. All your cockamamie ideas and beliefs, whatever they are, but you're honest. And the Jewish community knows who you are, knows not to include you, knows not to embrace you. They can still respect you. They can still like you. But halachically speaking, you don't do this. You cause harm. You devastate communities. These two guys who are supposedly rabbis got involved with things. Oh my gosh. How many terrible, terrible things now are going to happen into families and things because of their devastation. This is why I am so much against your lying missionary types. If you are a Jewish person and you've left Judaism, you embrace evangelical Christianity, Baptist Christianity, your own version of Christianity, your own version of Judaism, do whatever, who cares? But don't you dare enter our communities, causing us pain and suffering and harm because of your ignorance of halakha. You're putting yourself into places where you don't belong, and therefore causing devastation to families, yourselves, and children. Shame on you. You have no right to be doing this. You say, oh, I'm doing it in the name of the Lord. Yeah, you know how many times they would put the Jews in the synagogue, right? Light it on fire and burn them in the name of the Lord. All right? None of this. Shame on you. You don't belong here. And I personally am going to reject you unless you come out and tell the truth. Period. I know there are guys out there that call themselves rabbis. They have a big old black kippah just like me. They're quoting from the same books. And yeah, they might be a rabbi, ordained from a church. No, they're not kosher. Now, like I said, if you want to believe Yeshua is your Messiah, that's your business. I could care less. But that has absolutely no place in Judaism. Okay? Period. Now, I have discussed in so many places the whole idea and concept of the Messiah and why Yeshua could not be a Messiah of any size, shape, or form. I've seen today in some of the notes that I've seen on the Facebook comments, people want to say, well, Yeshua was the Messiah Ben Yosef, the one who was to suffer and die before Ben David comes. Rolling my eyes here. You know what? That is such a ridiculous thing to say. And why? Well, later rabbis said it. Yeah, I know the later rabbis said it. But they didn't know the history any more than you do. The concept of Mashiach Ben Yosef only developed hundreds of years after Yeshua was long dead. So I don't think that he fit the mold of something that was only going to come centuries after him. Now, let's get down to issues. The concept of the Messiah in Judaism. In the Bible, I have an entire series for free on KosherTorah.com on all the biblical prophecies about the Messiah. Go on to KosherTorah.com. You can listen to the audio version. About the Talmud, I covered the Mashiach in the Talmud from Tractate Sanhedrin, Parakelic. 6 hours of classes. They are on my YouTube channel. Go look at them there for free. I have a course about post-Talmudic messianic ideas in Judaism, where I covered all the different ideas. That's a course, if you're interested, take it. It'll cover topics that we're discussing here tonight as well. Now, in Judaism, we didn't just have 2 messiahs. We had 3. Do you know the 3? The original 2 messiahs was, of course, Ben David and, most people have forgotten, Ben Aharon, the son of Aaron. Now, the concept of the son of Aaron was prominent in Qumran amongst the Essenes and people like that. Because remember this, what does a Messiah do? Number 1, the Messiah does not save you from your sins. There is absolutely no concept of that in Judaism at all, period. There's no concept of original sin. For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. One of the 4 spiritual laws of evangelical Christianity doesn't apply to Jews, right? Matter of fact, I can even quote to you scriptures clearly where it says all Jews have a portion in the world to come. But I'm not here to debate. I'm not here to be polemic. I'm trying to build bridges with you, not burn them. Try to get that straight. Learn. Again, I have to say, I see so many people out there who take advantage of the large number of books, Jewish books available in English, and they learn them very well. But you have absolutely no idea what you're reading. You have absolutely no idea of the context of everything that you're dealing with. I have a comment here, someone saying, I'm a Christian, and I'm not looking to convert. You're here for knowledge. Guess what? You are welcome. You are my brother. And I will walk arm in arm with you together because we're doing the same thing, trying to serve God. We each do it in our own different way, and that's the way it's supposed to be. There's no confusion there. Moving on. When it comes to reading Jewish books, you make the mistake from the outside context that you don't understand from inside Judaism. And you read everything and say, this is gospel truth. We don't have a concept of gospel truth in Judaism. It's not our way. We look and know and understand there are multiple opinions. And every single writing is an opinion. One of the posts that I put on my Facebook page was the halacha of Mashiach from Maimonides. And I was reading some of the comments. People were saying, well, this is Maimonides' opinion. What the heck did you think it was? He wrote the book. What did you think? He's going to write something that's not his opinion? Do you have any idea of the concept of Divrei Rabbanan, the words of our sages? And he's the only one to have written the halachot of Mashiach. And then someone commented, well, if it was authoritative, it would have been in the Shulchan Aruch, the Code of Jewish Law. I roll my eyes, and it makes me want to, it's such a frustrating to hear such an ignorant statement being made. Because if you know anything about the Code of Jewish Law, the Shulchan Aruch Rabbi Yosef Karo from the 1500s, as compared to Maimonides' code way back in the 1100s, all right? Maimonides endeavored to write a code which included all elements of Torah observance, regardless of whether they are in practice or not. Rabbi Karo, following the path of Rabbeinu Yaakov, the author of the Tur, only wrote a code with regards to those laws applicable today. And that's why he never included the laws of Mashiach, because it's not applicable today. Now, getting back to the concepts of Messiah. Read your Bible. It's real simple. The original concept was political. The office of Mashiach is not a spiritual office. It is a political office. For example, if the United States of America today was conquered by and destroyed by Russia, China, Iran, Canada, or any of the devastating enemies we may face, well, what happens? The Americans who are faithful and patriotic would say, we wait for the day for the restoration of our government and the return of our president. Well, that is what the, in quote, Messiah. The Messiah means the ordained, the official, authorized king. He doesn't save you from your sins. He doesn't make a reconnection from God. He doesn't do anything of the above. Has nothing to do with anything. His job from the Bible is to be the reconstitution of the Davidic monarchy. Period. End of story. That's it. Who is the Mashiach Ben Aharon? The authoritative high priest who is going to resurrect and reconstruct the appropriate kosher temple. That's what the Mashiach Ben Aharon is supposed to do. Read the Qumranic literature. It says it right there. That's his job. So Ben David and Ben Aharon come specifically to do what? Resurrect the authoritative government of Israel. Nothing to do with any future afterlife, connecting with God, or anything spiritual. It's completely and totally political. And don't think that wasn't known and understood by Yeshua in his day, because he certainly knew that and lived that, in spite of what anybody says. Now, for the record, later arose the legend of what we call the Mashiach Ben Yosef. Now, what was his original form? Originally, Mashiach Ben Yosef was to, again, contribute to the redemption. Redemption is a political process, not a spiritual one. And what is his job? He is the leader of the lost tribes of Israel. Remember, the northern kingdom was under the Joseph tribes, led by Ephraim. So therefore, this is supposed to be the leader of the lost tribes of Israel, whose job it is to bring the tribes back to the land of Israel, reconnect with David, and reconstitute the united nation of Israel under the 12 tribes. That alone are the roles of the three Mashiachs. Period. That's it. End of story. But now, let's move through history to see how these roles have developed. Because we come into the Second Temple period, where, if you will remember, the government was certainly not kosher, any more than the present government in the state of Israel is kosher, or meaning authoritative under Torah law. The government of the state of Israel in today's world is no different from the government of any other country. All right? It is not a Jewish state, in spite of what anybody wants to say. You have citizens of all faiths and all religions who equally serve in the country's military and equally interact within the country and society. They're all Israeli, and they're not all Jews. There's a big difference between the two. And the rabbinate is very clear between the two. So, with that being said, that's the way it was in the olden days too. But now, moving right along. In the time when the Second Temple stood and issues with Rome were very, very much hot and bothered, all right, you had the groups of the Zealots who wanted to provoke the civil war with Rome, knowing and believing that God in the end would save them. One of those political leaders, an extremist, like Taliban leader of the day, whether you like it or not, was Yeshua. The real split between the rabbis and Yeshua had nothing to do with spiritual things. I've taught this very clearly in the Orthodox rabbi reads the Gospel of Matthew. If you read Yeshua's teachings, they're pretty much just what every other rabbi has taught. There's nothing really new there, nothing new. And most Christians don't know this because they don't understand the origins of the teachings. But okay, whatever. Even about Paul, I'll get to Paul and the whole Shimon Kefa thing in a minute. Yeshua, as documented in the Christian sources, was a very, very violent man. All right, think not, I come to bring peace, I've come to bring a sword. And literally then he goes and tells his disciples, oh, carry swords. He was a racist. He did not like non-Jews. He certainly did not like women. And I remember, if you're a Christian, you might know the story, where in which a non-Jewish woman that had tugged on his fringe, tzitzit, and asked him for a bracha. And he says, what, does the dog eat off the master's table? He called a Gentile woman a dog? I challenge you to go to every Orthodox rabbi in the world today, non-Jewish women. Go right ahead, ask them for a blessing, and see how honored and privileged they will feel, how humbled that you would choose them to ask for a blessing, they would bless you. I've asked big rabbis this, and everyone answers in the same light. For Yeshua to say that, very bad. But now, moving right along. Here comes Crippy. We have my Texas son with us today. Crypto, are you going to come on camera and say hello like you did the last time? Yeah. You remember how little Levana looked? This is like 5 times the size. Son of Tex, big guy. Getting back to the business here. Second Temple times. Yeshua's community very much wanted to provoke the civil war. Remember his students, Simon Zealotus? He was a zealot, all right? Judas Iscariot was a Sicarii. These were the assassins. This is not something new. I don't make this stuff up. You could go read this from a Lutheran minister named S.G.F. Brandon in his book, Jesus and the Zealots, written, gosh, I don't know how many decades ago. This is all well-known, documented stuff. Yeshua was not a good guy. He just wasn't. Now, that is what caused the rift. Now, there are those of you who say you want to be a first-century Christian. I've heard that term thrown around. Just like Yeshua's original students, who did not believe in a virgin birth. When Matthew makes reference, he's trying to say that, like, every Talmud appraises their Rebbe. Every Rebbe becomes like a Mashiach. So that's exactly what Yeshu's Talmidim, his students, did as well. So when Matthew is quoting Isaiah, he's certainly not referring to a virgin birth. Matthew would never have thought of that because it's not within the text. He would have obviously recognized that the text is referring to a chosen child who's a sign. And that is his context of understanding Isaiah. But moving right along. The whole story of Barabbas, Barabbas, right? Bar Abba, son of the father. Whole bunch of interesting talk about that. Go read the Holy Blood and the Holy Grail of Piaget, Lee, and Lincoln about that. Go look at the Passover plot by Hugh Schoenfeld. This is well-documented stuff, so don't think and point fingers, the rabbi made this up. No, he didn't. All right? The entire story of the crucifixion never happened. It was all a hoax. No, Yeshua was never on a cross. It was all a setup. If you want to read the history of it, go read the books and see for yourself what it was all about. The crucifixion was a hoax. The resurrection never happened. Someone's going to say blood libel on Jews. But this is the truth. Go look at the source material. And you want to know one of the oldest sources you will find this in? The Qumran. The Qumran knew this very well. Now, the reason why they believe this is because they passed this down from, who taught them that? The original followers of Yeshua in the first century. Because that's what they believed. They were not believing Yeshua was there to save them from their sins and to reconnect them from God and all the rest. None about it. It was political for them. It was all political. They knew it. And because it was political, it was these who were later called in the Gemara the Biryonim, the zealots. They were like a Torah Taliban of their day. They provoked the war with the Romans, which is what our sages were terrified of. Look what happened. All of Israel was destroyed because of that level of violence. And these were the followers of Yeshua, and why our sages flat down rejected anything and everything to do. So much so that long afterwards, in the Kabbalah of the Arizal, Sefer Gilgulim Samech Zayin, the Arizal said Yeshua was the Gilgul, the reincarnation of Esav, the reincarnation of Cain. He was a bloodthirsty, violent man then, and he still is. If you want to be a Mashiach, you have to fulfill what it is to be a Mashiach, the political office. Yeshua certainly never did that. He's dead, he's gone, he's out of the way, so he's not Mashiach. And you say, well, he's my personal Messiah. What the heck does that mean? Do you have a personal president that you have? Do you have a personal prime minister that you have? You don't have a personal Mashiach. This is your Christian background. Confusing and misunderstanding Judaism. So, in Talmudic times, the concept of the Messiah expanded. And we tried to understand and embellish. And this is where Midrash came from. Remember what a Midrash is. A Midrash is a story. It's not history. It's not Ruach HaKodesh from prophecy. It's a story for embellishments. Our sages did this all the time. It's a wonderful teaching tool. So you will read in the Gemara where the sages will say, then the Holy One, blessed be he, had this conversation with, and Hashem said this. This is Midrash. This is not literal. This is all stories. It's more so for entertaining and education than to give you any kind of concept of history. And many of the teachings of the Messiah come out of this. So, one of the big deals that, of course, Christians embrace with regards to Yeshua, and is discussed in the Gemara and elsewhere, is the concept of Isaiah 53, the suffering servant of God. Just read Isaiah chapter 42, 48, and all the rest. It clearly states that it's referring to the Jewish people in a symbolic way. But Christians will say it refers to the Messiah, refers to Yeshua. Well, I'll tell you this. Christians aren't the only one to interpret it like that. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to hide things because it looks better. The Zohar says that Isaiah 53 refers to the Messiah. Now, not to Yeshua. How and why and when would the Zohar say that? Because the Zohar understood that the Messiah, as the quote, king of Israel, would be the archetypal leader. And as the Jewish people suffer, so too does their king. So the only reason why Isaiah 53 refers to the Messiah according to the Zohar is because it refers primarily to the Jewish people. There you go. It's not a big deal. Moving right along. As things went through history, as we know, we had the terrible Bar Kokhba War. Jews and Judaism fell into a place of disrepute throughout the entire empire. As the century before, not century before, but years and years before, I got to go into the Paul story. Our sages were very, very much afraid of the civil war that the Yeshua followers were going to provoke. And they got together and discussed what are we going to do. Now, just give you a little caveat. You go in the Sefer Hasidim, Rabbi Yehuda HaChasid, talks about curses that we place on Rashaim, evil people. And he says one of the people we do not curse is someone named Shimon Kefa, because he did what he had to do for the sake of Israel. Now, the story, the Midrash of Shimon Kefa, I've translated, it's out there, you can go look it up. According to the story, sages are terrified of the violent influence of Yeshua and his followers. They're all politicians. He faked a crucifixion to make him look like a supernatural being. Because, there was the concept and the idea that Mashiach would be the incarnation of Metatron. All these ideas and stuff you'll find in my book, Visions, End of Days. Get it on Amazon. All that stuff is there. All right, full translation. And he wanted to make him aggrandize himself. Now, one of the sages from the Sanhedrin came forth and said, let me go forth. I'm going to infiltrate their movement, and I will do my best to neutralize their influence and spiral them away from us. And it was on condition that his name would never be cursed. And that man was named Shimon Kefa, who you would think would be Peter, because, Cephas. But no, we're talking about Paul. Paul concocted the story of seeing the light on the road to Emmaus. It was a hoax, so that he could get close to, like a Mission Impossible kind of thing, the group in Jerusalem. Now, as you look throughout the Christian story, all right, the church in Jerusalem, the followers of Yeshua did not like Paul. They did not trust him at all. They even tried to have him killed. Okay, they knew he was phony baloney, but he went out there to neutralize their influence, because the followers of Yeshua were going far and wide. They tried to create an army to fight the Romans, sowing the seeds of political insurrection, like an ancient Taliban, like an ancient ISIS. This is who they were. So this is who Paul was, not the person that people think he was. He was an infiltrator from the Sanhedrin. Oh, I know that's very blasphemous and insulting to Christians, but that's the way it was. Moving right along. As the Jewish fortune fell because of the violence, our sages disconnected from that, went to Yavneh and resurrected, maintained Judaism as we were both. All right? It says here, it looks like both sides are using deception. Unfortunately, that was the way it was. All right? You had people doing bad stuff. And this has maintained itself for, centuries. Truth's got to come out. We got to stop this stuff. Yeah, like I said, build the bridges. So, before we can even understand the Mashiach in the Kabbalah, I got to understand where it all comes from. So during this time, after the destruction of the Second Temple, after Bar Kokhba, many of the church fathers of the time were very virulently anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic, and they pretty much picked the fight with the beginning of tremendous anti-Semitic literature. Now, how do you think the rabbis responded? They weren't like, the proverbial deer in the headlight didn't know what to do. They knew very well what to do. Tit for tat. And this is why you will find throughout the Talmud, in the revived or restored versions that were not, censored by the church, all the stories about Yeshua. And they were polemic, derogatory, and insulting. Just like the Christian church fathers were derogatory and insulting towards Jews in Israel, well, the rabbis responded in like kind, tit for tat. Yeah, it stinks. But you'll find many of the older rabbis, when they talk about the stories about Yeshua in the Gemara, the Talmud, they'll tell you they're polemic, meaning that they're not historical. And when I address issues, I don't bother to bring them in, because I recognize the story. Right? I recognize the story as meant to be insightful. Right? Now, did you know of a certain minister, a priest, who said, rather than convert a Jew, I'd rather tie a millstone around his neck and throw him down a well and watch him die? Who do you think said that? What loving, liberal, sweet guy said that? That was Martin Luther, founder of Protestantism. He did not like Jews. He was a real rabid anti-Semite. How do you think Jews respond? We don't turn the other cheek. This is where the conflict came from. And it very much influenced the entire concept of Messiah. So, the messianic character started to evolve. You have a tremendous number of midrashim, all right, stories that came from earliest sources. One of them you can read called the Sefer Zerubbabel, right, the book of Zerubbabel. We covered this in our course. You go get all the information there. And it introduced a number of embellished stories about the Messiah, the son of Ephraim, and how he's going to come and fight the wars of Israel, and he's going to be standing up against the character of Armilos. Armilos is the one who in the Christian tradition is called the Antichrist. Now, here is something very interesting. In a lot of modern Christian literature, they look at Jewish literature and say the Jews are waiting for their Messiah. Well, the Messiah of the Jews to come is clearly going to be the Antichrist, and we will defeat him when Jesus comes. That's how the Christians look at it. And the Jews say, yeah, well, Jesus is going to come for the Christian, and he's going to be the Armilos of the Antichrist, and he will be defeated by the real Mashiach. Oh my goodness. How confusing. All right? You could say, well, the real Antichrist and the true Mashiach, please stand up. I mean, who's who, what's what? You have such confusion based on prejudice, hatred, and lies. This is why I take such a strong stance against this. All right? We got to clear the air. Take a look at the world around us, okay? Take a look at the political infighting that's going on, not just in the United States, but everywhere. Take a look at the whole vaccine issue, right? Fighting in the streets all around the world, crazy stuff going on, right? The growth, the development of hatred against anything God-based, biblical-based, Torah-based, Jewish, right? Christians are attacked today. I wrote this 10 years ago. I said, guys, you are the new Jews, whether you like it or not. All right? You got to remember, united we stand, or divided we fall. And that's why I'm so much against these deceptive missionaries coming to the Jewish community, cause all kinds of suspicion and strife and harm, because you guys are messing up the pot. Going back to the story of the Messiahs in the Kabbalah. Remember, the Kabbalah doesn't come until much, much later. So all of the midrashim have developed, assigning roles to Ben Yosef, assigning roles to Ben David. And what happened to Ben Aharon? Well, he got no more temple, so no one's really caring about resurrecting the temple, but he got demoted, if you will. He's still there, referred to in the Gemara Masechet Succah as the Kohen Tzedek. All right? And you get into whole concepts of Malchi Tzedek, Melchizedek, and all the rest, but leave that because it's all stories. If you want to read stories, Midrash, please introduce them with the words, once upon a time. Because that's what a Midrash is. It's a story. So don't go reading stories and say, oh, look what Judaism says. No. Don't point to me any one rabbi and say, this is what Judaism says. No, you say, this is what this rabbi says. Period. It's a very different concept. Christianity is based upon the concept of faith, proper doctrine. You got to believe the right thing. So what I believe is right, and what you believe, therefore, is wrong. Judaism, we don't have that concept at all. We look at what you do. We're interested in your behavior, the halacha, the way to go. Call it, if you will, a Torah Tao. It's the way that you got to live. All right? As far as your beliefs are concerned, you believe whatever you want. But what you do is what counts. The Mashiach concept evolved in Judaism as a response to what was developing in Christendom. And the concept of what the Messiah was now to do, well, we know from the Tanakh, there are to be the great wars of Gog and Magog, the great wars of what the Christian Bible would call Armageddon. Well, where does the Messiah fit into this? Well, it doesn't really. I mean, even if you read in Zechariah 14, the famous Haftarah that we read at Sukkot, where in which it states that the army is going to surround Jerusalem, and then Hashem comes with his holy ones. It doesn't say the Mashiach. We interpret that to be, but it's not what it says. So all of these things have developed and evolved through the years. The Zohar comes on the scene in the 1200s, 13th century, and adds another layer of stories and teachings and embellishments, which then become embraced by many others in the Jewish community. And this is actually the foundation of what we can call the Mashiach in Kabbalah. Now, we have to move into the 15th century, into the writings of the Ariel, to really see what happens here. Because according to the Torah, the Ari, and the understanding of the universe, we are not in a proper state of psychic spiritual balance with God. The entire world and universe is blemished by the what we call the sin of Adam in the Garden of Eden. No, not original sin. Doesn't say anything. No, we're not disconnected from God, but there is a spiritual descent. The Mashiach, according to Kitvei Ari, has to come and elevate the consciousness of the world so as to make an entire global tikkun, rectification, wherein which the entire world evolves. Now, how is that to be accomplished? Well, yes, you do have, again, the traditional prophecies of the great milchamot of Gog and Magog. Now, the wars of Gog and Magog are supposedly now divided into three separate times. Some have interpreted them to be the great world wars. World Wars I and II, with a World War III to come. That's an interpretation. I guess it's as good or bad as anyone else. But now, the tikkun must come to the world, and all souls must be elevated and rectified. So now develops something different. Before, in Judaism, the Mashiach was, like we said, a political character whose job it is to serve a political role of the restitution of government. But now the Kabbalah comes and takes things out of its literal context and shifts things. And this is where the Mashiach became something more than just a person. So according to the Kitvei Ha'ari, we have the two tiers of Judaism, as we know, what we call Pshat and Sod. These simple versions of Torah Judaism, which every Orthodox Jew observes, Halacha, Gemara, Talmud, and then, of course, the secrets of the Kabbalah. Now, according to the derech of the Ari, the derech of Judaism, or Pshat, is called now the Torah of, or the way of Mashiach Ben Yosef. And he has to die in order for Mashiach Ben David to come. Or what that means is the way of the Pshat needs to be put aside so that the way of the Kabbalah can come. Because according to the Kabbalists, when Mashiach comes, We're all going to elevate to the level of all being Kabbalists. We're going to observe Torah and mitzvot according to the Kabbalah, and the whole world's going to be a Kabbalistic world. That's the way the Kabbalists look at it. Fine. Like we said, you can believe it anything you want. But nowhere is the role of Mashiach in that respect even changed from Pshat. Meaning, he still has to be a bloodline descendant of David. He still has to bring down the temple. I always say bring down instead of building. You look at the Halacha and Rambam, and he says build the temple. But whether you're looking at the Gemara or you're looking at the Zohar, both of them claim and state that the third temple to come is going to come down from heaven already built. All right? Mothership UFO? Who knows? You know, here's an interesting one you want to play into. There's an interesting Agadah story that when the temple was being destroyed on Tisha B'Av, Mashiach was born. And then it says that he was taken away from his mother and taken to a secret location called the Bird's Nest. There was he raised to eventually come to take his place and role. What Tisha B'Av are we talking about? What temple are we talking about? The first temple. So, on the 9th of Av in 586 BCE, a child was born in the house of David, who supposedly was taken away from his mother and taken to, you know where the Garden of Eden is, don't you? The bird's nest, where Zohar says where Mashiach is in the Garden of Eden. The Garden of Eden is in inner earth. Wee-oo-hoo. So Mashiach is supposedly, my goodness, if he was born on the 9th of Av, 586 BCE to today, how old would that make him? And supposedly, according to this legend, not history, that is the Mashiach to come. But he's still a Ben David. So, as these ideas and concepts evolved through the decades, you had the one crazy guy in Turkey who rose, Shabtai Tzvi. And he starts doing all the Kabbalah stuff that the Ariel and others wrote. And boy, oh boy, everybody believed he was Mashiach. Yes, they did. Even the Sultan in Turkey. He says, this is the Jewish Mashiach. I'll tell you what, Mr. Mashiach, I'll give you a choice. You're not going to be Ben David. You want to be Ben Yosef? I'll be more than happy to chop your head off. If not, then you're going to convert and become a Muslim. Well, Shabtai Tzvi, according to a lot of people, must have been like bipolar or something. He was a really unstable guy and did a lot of weird stuff, and he converted. Now, nowhere does it say Mashiach is going to convert and become a Muslim or Christian or Buddhist or Hindu. So this, needless to say, was a debacle in the Jewish world, which actually made like a tidal wave movement by rabbis to become anti-Kabbalah, the likes of which lasted up until almost recent times. But it was right after this that Rabbi Baal Shem Tov, Hasidism, started. And he did something very profound. He personalized the concept of Mashiach. Not that you would have your own personal Messiah, but that you, I, each of us, according to Baal Shem Tov, have a spark of Mashiach inside us, and we each have to develop that spark to achieve what's called messianic consciousness. And that is where we are at today. You have many rabbis who have written their own ideas and beliefs about Mashiach, like Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto or like Rabbi Moshe David Vali, and they write all their ideas and all their beliefs. And if you're interested in comparative messianic philosophy and ideas, it could be a college course. You can read all these different things. A lot of the materials are available in English. But please, please, please remember, none of this is authoritative. None of this is the Word of God. These are the opinions of their authors. So if you read something from Ramchal or Rabbi Vali or Rabbi Breslov, Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, or the Baal Shem Tov, or the Ben Ish Chai, or the Ari, remember, those are very interesting opinions of their authors. Gee, how interesting to learn. And you must put it within that subjective context. You have big rabbis out there who are very big on Ramchal. Others who are very big on Rabbi Nachman. Others who are very big on the Ariel. Others who are big on this school and that school. I mean, I teach the prophetic school. We all have our own. Fine. This is where we fit in the Jewish concepts so very foreign to Christians. Elu ve'elu divrei Elohim chaim. These and these are the words of the living God. And this is what we call in Hebrew deot. If you do not have a Jewish background, learning with a proper, ordained, Orthodox rabbi, you're not going to get the subtle nuance and flow of how to understand Torah. You're going to continue reading your English books, and you're going to continue to misunderstand them because you're not going to understand the context in which they were written. You're going to confuse a story for literal. You're going to confuse the symbol for actual. You're not going to get it right. And this is where we are today in the big, what we call it, the Hebrew word, balagan of modern day learning that social media and the internet has created. Yeah, everybody is writing all this stuff in English. And I find it very objectionable because when you translate into English without really fully explaining what it's all about, people draw all the wrong conclusions. Somebody's asking if the crucifixion was hoaxed, how is anything credible? I don't know. What is the definition of anything? What is the definition of credible? You want to go back into the first century Christian? They knew it was a hoax. Again, you Schoenfeld, the Passover plot. All right? Read these books. See for yourself. S.G.F. Brandon's book, Jesus and the Zealots. These are not Jewish authors. They're Christian authors. See for yourself. What was his name? That Muslim writer also wrote, Jesus the Zealot or something like that, taking from the older views. You can even, if you want to wax a little conspiratorial, read Piaget Lee and Lincoln's book about the Holy Blood and the Holy Grail. Because there is, and I'm pretty certain of this myself, Yeshua, the historical guy, must have been married, must have had kids. Because especially if you're talking from a Christian point of view, where he says he was the perfect sacrifice, he observed all the halacha. Well, the first halacha is to get married and have kids. Then he didn't fulfill the halacha, and you ain't your perfect sacrifice. So too bad. But yeah, they believed very much that it was all a hoax. So okay, look, I'm not going to tell you what to believe. I'm not here to break or challenge your faith. If you're a Christian, you're my brother, you're my sister, and I embrace you because we have, like I said, a lot more in common. If we're going to disagree, we're going to disagree. Look at Islam. Islam has their holiday of Ain, right? The Eid, I think they call it the Eid, in which they celebrate the sacrifice that Abraham made of his son on the Akedah, who according to them was Ishmael. According to us, it's Isaac, right? They say we changed the Torah. Okay, whatever. I'll wish them a happy Eid. I don't care. What difference does it make? At this time of year, this is December, Christians are celebrating Christmas. I think that's a great idea. I love to see the Christmas lights. We grew up on Long Island. We had them all over the place. They were wonderful. We enjoyed them. Matter of fact, when I lived out in Los Angeles, out in San Fernando Valley, there was one area, I forgot where it was, where this entire block lit up the most profound and beautiful Christmas tree assemblies. They had all the lights and everything else. People would literally line up to go around this block. It was a big traffic jam. It's beautiful. I have no problems with that. You guys say, well, it's idolatry. You know what? Let God deal with that. When Christians, real Christians, think of Christmas, instead of thinking Santa Claus and presents and money, they're supposed to be thinking of peace on earth and goodwill towards men. Right? That's a concept I can embrace. In spite of the fact that you can even go to the Vatican's own website and they will tell you the truth. Right? They knew Jesus wasn't born on the 25th of December. They knew that did not happen. Okay, whatever. You can get into whatever. But again, I'm not here to challenge your faith. The Messiah concept in the Kabbalah took the political and the historical and spiraled it completely in a different direction. Yeshua's original historical followers tried to develop a political movement by embellishing it with this spiritual idea. No, it was never to save men from their sins, never to be the sacrificial lamb, not to be the Passover. None of that. None of it existed in the day. You don't see it in the original literature. They were completely oblivious. And if you see it in the Christian Bible, go ask Christian scholars when that was written. You will find that there is a lot of material, scholarly material, in the Christian scholars who know that not everything you read in the Christian Bible was written by the original authors. And that's a topic for you to discuss with Christian theologians. But for us to understand the concept of Mashiach, in its origins, it was completely political. I hold by the Bible. I believe in the Bible, right? Literal, not literal, whatever. And I do believe that, like we say, I wait every day for Mashiach to come. And somehow, some way, the Davidic monarchy will be restored. And there will be a new world order, whatever. It's supposed to come after a terrible holocaust of violence. And hopefully we will have peace on earth and goodwill towards man in the end. Halavai, halavai. Don't know how it's going to come, just like Maimonides writes. We don't know how. Right? I don't know where Eliyahu fits into this. Is Mashiach Ben Yosef an actual person or a concept and idea? If you read the stories, they'll tell you he's a person. They'll even give you his name. But that doesn't mean anything. A story's a story. And again, my book Visions, I questioned the identity of Mashiach Ben Yosef and wrote a whole big long thing on it. The book you read, you see. Ben David, there's a lot of talk today that maybe he's not even an individual, but just a concept. The Bible doesn't say that, but who knows? We're not going to know and understand how these things materialize until they do. All right? We believe Mashiach ben David is a guy and he's going to come. Okay, great. And when he does, he does. He's going to be a prophet like Moshe Rabbeinu. Somebody's saying that if Mr. Trump is reelected, then Mashiach will come. Well, I know the guy, you're saying this. I should let you know maybe Mr. Trump himself is Mashiach. Oh, you go think about that one. Don't tell Mr. Trump I said that. All right? He might take that as offense. And of course, we're teasing. All right? No politics here, please. All right? None of that. All right? We have enough problems as it is. But anyway, on a serious note, understand the difference of the Messiahs in the Kabbalah from the Messiah of the Bible. The difference between the political and what evolved from this, the spiritual, the Midrashic, all the embellishments. This is why Maimonides in the book of Halacha does not include all of this, because he very well knew that none of these things are essential. This is why I said, yep, believe in Mashiach, he's going to come, end the story. All the details of this and that and how it's going to happen, no one knows. We'll deal with it when he comes. Period. End of story. We need to build the bridges. We need to work together between God-fearing, Bible-believing Jews, God-fearing, Bible-believing Christians. And do not let anybody come in between to be divisive, to destroy this. Please. Please, if you're a Christian, be proud of who you are. If you're Jewish, be proud of who you are. But don't confuse the two. If you want to create your own religion and call yourself whatever, then just do that. But don't come in to the Jewish community and lie and cause pain and suffering and harm. Because that is what makes you, in the words of the Torah, a rasha, an evil person. And I will always stand against that. And I will always condemn it. And I will not welcome you or embrace you if you're going to be lying, cheating, and stealing. Please do not get into politics with me. You want to talk against the President of the United States? You're not going to do it here, because I won't tolerate it. Halacha. Our Torah says we respect our leaders. I don't care who and what you vote for or your politics. We respect Mr. Biden, Mr. Trump, Mr. Obama, Mr. Bush, and everyone before. We refer to them as sir, and if there was a woman in office, as madam, and we can agree or disagree, but you show respect. Period. Just like we're supposed to show respect to each other's faith and beliefs. Which is why the liars who come in here and try to deceive, they're not respecting anybody. So if you're a believer in Yeshua by whatever means, say so. Just say so. So no one believes that you're something that you're not. Don't lie. Be honest. And that's that. So, about the hoaxed resurrection, that's right out of the Qumran. They knew it because the original followers of Yeshua from the first century, they were the ones who were living in Arabia. Go check this stuff out. My courses are online if you want to learn them. Free stuff, pay for stuff. My book, Visions, is on Amazon. You do the research. You see for yourself. You learn and understand this stuff. And please, dear God, let's build bridges rather than burn them. That's not the show. All right, let's conclude on that note. Thank you all for joining me. Ariel Tzadok, KosherTorah, KosherTorahSchool.com. Check us out. We'll see you all soon. Kol Tov. Shalom.